Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video I'm going to do a get ready with me whilst we answer a question on Reddit. Let's get to it. So the question we're actually going to be answering is marriage actually worth it? So the context of this is, I'm not quite 30 and I've dated here and there, but increasingly I'm just not sure marriage is for me. A lot of the married women around me seem to be doing most of the labour, full-time work, take care of the kids, manage home, while their husbands don't seem to be doing nearly as much. To be frank, my life as a single mum seems simpler and happier, not knocking married people at all, but even the single men around my age seem pretty immature. I'd always wanted to get married and have kids, but it looks insanely difficult. Are there any positives? Now, I am a married woman, so I felt like I could weigh in on this. But I also need to do my makeup, so I thought, two birds, one stone, let's do this. So it's interesting, firstly, that you've mentioned how you've seen that the dynamic is wrong, is off. That is probably a relationship thing. Maybe things weren't established before they got married as to how the housework and how the time was going to be split. That's not an issue I have. I'm very fortunate that I don't really have any labour battles with my husband. It's very much like there's jobs that I do and there's jobs that he does. Mainly because the job that he does I don't like doing, and vice versa. It works for us. Some of them may be slightly assumed gender roles. That doesn't really bother me. As long as it gets done, it gets done. But we lived together a long time before we got married, but I'm skipping ahead. Asking a question like, is getting married worth it, is a really hard one to answer because it's going to be different for every individual person. It's going to depend on who you're going to marry. It's going to depend on how old you are to a degree. Now, I'm not knocking people who get married young. My brother got married at 23. They're still together. They're loving life. Very happy for them. But that's not necessarily going to happen all the time. It could be that getting married young, you don't really know each other, you don't really know yourself and what you're after in life. So a lot of it for me does depend on age. I was 29 when I got married, the week before my 30th birthday, and for me that was in the right time in my life. I'd done a lot of things by then that I'd wanted to do by the time I got married. I'd owned my own house. We were living together, we'd been together a long time, so we knew each other really well at that point. I knew myself pretty well. I'd been in other long-term relationships. They hadn't worked out for various reasons because I knew that wasn't what I wanted. So for me, everything kind of came together. Now, with regards to positives, there are some positives about being married. It's nice to have that security, to be like, well, I'm married to this person. It's going to take a lot for them to break up with me, put it that way. It's going to take a lot of effort, it's going to take a lot of money, which sounds like a negative, but you have to be really sure when you get married that that person is someone you want to spend your life with, because to get divorced, it's cost like the same as getting married, depending on how much you spend on your wedding. The wedding itself is another thing that people stress about before they get married, like, oh, I don't want a big affair. You don't have to. This is the thing that I find, is that it's your day. You can kind of plan it how you want, and at the end of the day, as long as you get married, that's kind of a successful day, right? That's everything that's gone right. That's everything that's gone the way you want it to go. A lot of people as well confuse a bad marriage with a bad partner. The marriage could be fine, but it could just be that your partner is lazy, your partner is not giving as much as you are, not as recipient to the things that you want. So again, it really comes down to knowing the person you're gonna marry. So I was with my husband for 7 years before he even proposed. But like I said, we had other things that we wanted, things that were more important. So for instance, buying our own home. That was more important to us than a wedding. Now, not everyone's going to agree with me there. A lot of people would rather get married and rent, and that's fine. There's no shame in that. But we just wanted that stability behind us, especially if we decided to start a family. We would have our own home. We wouldn't have to worry about renting and moving out, and you know, potentially being evicted from our own property. Well, being evicted from a house that we didn't own. Whereas now, you know, as long as we keep our payments up, we're safe, you know, we've got that security behind us. There were other things that were important as well, like we wanted to make sure we were at a good place in our careers, that we didn't feel like it was coming back into a stress of trying to work somewhere. Now these may sound like really silly things, but for me, knowing that I had a good career at the time, and that I was stable financially, it allowed me to go, actually, yeah, okay, now let's, marriage is a good idea. We got married after we'd been together for 8 years. We've been together 11 years this year. Nothing's changed, really, but I also attribute that to the fact I think we had a good foundation before we got married. Now there are some people who get married at 18, 19 for whatever reason, and it doesn't work out, and I believe it's because they don't know what they want, they don't know what they're looking for, and they don't necessarily know what else is around, what other opportunities could be there. Now, I'm not talking about other people, I'm not saying, oh, the grass is greener, because it isn't always greener on the other side. But what I'm saying is maybe they would have preferred to travel, maybe they would have preferred to do something else before they settled down. Now, absolutely, when you're married, it doesn't stop you from doing things like travelling, but whilst you're a single Pringle, it's a lot easier to go do things and not feel like you have to concern yourself with somebody else. There absolutely are some negatives around getting married. It costs a lot. If you decide to take your husband's name, there's a lot for you to do, a lot to change, and it can be a bit frustrating having to change so many things, or new bank cards that you get, or new IDs, things like that. But nothing is ever 100% gravy anyway. You know, as soon as you get married, people start asking you when you're gonna have kids and all this sort of stuff, and that's not fun, because some people can't, some people don't want to, and it's a question that you don't really want to have to keep fielding, especially if you get married and you're not ready at that point to start a family. So there are negatives around getting married. I'm absolutely not saying that there isn't. Now, you mentioned the guys around you are quite immature. You've said that you're 29. That could just be that the people around where you live are immature, but if you go a bit further afield, you might be able to find someone who is mature. Now, obviously your circumstances are slightly different because you have a child, and in that case you have to be really cautious who you bring in and who you want to involve in your child's life. That I understand. You're going to want to make sure that the person who is around your child is okay to be around your child, if you know what I mean. You want to make sure that they're actually of sound mind, I guess. There is a certain element of risk to getting married, because there's no guarantee it's going to work out. But there's no guarantee of anything in life that it's going to work out. The only thing that can be guaranteed is death and taxes, as they say. One other thing that I do see a lot of people sort of messaging around and mentioning is how their finances are going to work. Now, that is really going to depend on you and your partner. I know some relationships where everything is joint and they have no single assets. I know some people who have everything single and there's nothing joint. They don't have a joint account, they've never had one. Or you have some people who have a joint account for most of their things, and then they have their own spending account. It really is going to depend on how you guys are as people and what you want, but it is always tricky as soon as you say, let's add finance into this, let's think about how the finances are going to go. It is nice being married. I do like it. I like the rings. That's the materialistic side of it, I'll be honest. I liked the wedding. I liked planning my wedding. I liked having my dress and having people there to celebrate us and getting to spend time with a lot of people all at once. Now, we did get married just after COVID, so it was the first time we were able to have loads of people together, so again it was special in that sense as well. I think if you are thinking about getting married and you're not excited about planning, you're not thinking about how great it will be, you're not excited to take your partner's name, then either marriage isn't for you or that person isn't for you. I'm going to go back to what I said at the very beginning around how you've mentioned that a lot of married women are doing all the job, their husbands don't do anything, and again that really comes down to the partner that you've got. If you get with someone and you plan to marry them within 6 months to a year, maybe 2 years, you're probably not going to know that person. And that's when you're going to start having these issues, because you've potentially rushed into something where you weren't really sure of who it was you were going to be with. And that's hard. That's difficult because you're learning as you go. But you've also said you're a mum, and you think that marriage is harder than being a mum. Marriage does take work. I never really understood what that meant before I got married. It takes work in the sense that you need to make sure that you're communicating a lot. You need to make sure that you can have a good conversation with each other and be heard and feel like you're being listened to. There needs to be give and take in a marriage. Sometimes you're going to give more, sometimes you're going to take more. It's not a 50-50 split all the time, but you need to be open to either. I think when we all grow up, women more than men, I think, I don't mean to assume, but it's my experience, is women often think about marriage more. They plan in their head where they're going to get married and what their life is going to be like. And with Hollywood, you have these unrealistic expectations of how marriage is going to work, and you know, my life is going to be picture perfect, and it isn't always. I'll be honest, being married, like I've mentioned, makes someone harder to leave you, but it makes it way more complicated as well, because all of a sudden your assets are one, and you need to consider all those things. Maybe you haven't met the right person yet. Maybe you haven't met that person who's like, you know what, actually I will do 50% of the housework, I will do this job that you really don't like, I will do X, Y and Z. So I wouldn't necessarily write it off. I would just maybe wait and see if someone comes along that you think, actually I can spend the rest of my life with you, I can tolerate you for the rest of my life. Because that kind of is what it all is, really. You are saying in front of all your friends and family, I'll put up with this person for the rest of my life. Those little habits that annoy everyone else, I love. I find them endearing. I'm going to be with this person forever and ever and ever. So yeah, don't discount marriage yet. Please. I feel like I feel like marriage isn't for everyone. My husband did not want to get married, but he knew it was important to me, it was what I wanted, and we compromised, you know. We waited until we got our first house before we even looked at getting engaged. We made sure that we were in a financial position where we could, and that's what I mean by like the whole give and take thing. We both made sure that we were both happy, and then we got married, and I've been happy since. For him, I think he's still happy. He says he is. But again, it's all about whether you find that person. There are positives in marriage. Not every marriage is bad. You will find when you put things like this on Reddit that you get all these people coming out saying, oh, my marriage failed because my husband was like this, my wife was like this, they never did this. And you will find horror stories, but if you wade through those horror stories, you are going to find success stories. My parents have been married for over 40 years. Both my brothers are happily married and have been for 5+ years now. That doesn't sound like a lot, but when some people can't keep a pair of boots for longer than a year, and people can't commit to having a dog, 5 years is a great achievement, you know? And they seem very happy from what I see. Now, it's quite an interesting perspective that you've put there, that you see that that the marriages don't work 50-50. But that's the outside perspective, what you're seeing. What have your friends actually told you? Do they say, well, no, because my husband works way more during the week, I take more of the slack. Maybe it's a case of I look after the kids, so he does this instead of this. Is your view outside in? Or have you got insider information? That's really what it comes down to for me. I think there is positives to being married. I am happy married. Has it changed anything? Absolutely not. My surname has changed. All my IDs have changed. And I'm less of a risk getting loans from the bank, I guess, because I'm in a committed relationship. That's really it. But like I said, don't discount marriage just yet. Just maybe wait and see if you can find that right person. But guys, that's all for today. But thanks for watching, guys. Do hit that like button and that subscribe button. It helps me out a lot. The channel is slowly growing, but we're getting there. Also come over to Instagram. I post loads of random stuff over there. So yeah, come and hang out. But have a great rest of the day, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.